Welcome back to 1210 WPHT. This is the Tom Azelby Show. Tom Azelby sitting here. You can also find me on the Old Gravy podcast. We're going to get into a little bit of true crime here. I'm looking forward to my guest, Manny Grossman. Manny is a crime researcher. You can find him all over YouTube. And some of the research he's done is about David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. He's been studying this case for years. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Manny on, and there's going to be a little prequel in the sense we're going to talk about 1976 and 1977 with Manny and the crime spree. But then the reason I have Manny on is there's more to the story, we think. And so we're gonna talk with Manny about what happened with the case that everyone knows about. He's going to take us through it, and then we're going to go back 6 years earlier to see what what he suspects happened, and some of the evidence that they have built with his partner, who's a retired detective himself. And Manny will tell you about his partner in this research. Manny, welcome to 1210 WPHT. It's great to have you this morning.
Thank you very much, Tom, for having me. I really appreciate it. Looking very much forward to speaking with you.
Yeah. So, Manny, what I'd like you to do is what I find interesting. Tell people about what your day job is, what you've been doing your whole life, where you're from, and because I think because this independent research, journalism, cold case crime. There's just regular American people going out there and do good work. So what do you do, and how'd you get into doing this crime research?
Well, by trade, I'm a fine estate gardener. I take care of very high-end properties in the New York City region.
Yep.
Been doing it for 20 years. It's a great way to make a living because essentially I'm my own boss.
Yeah.
Which I find to be very fun. But I got into Son of Sam really in 1993, but I got heavily into it on YouTube during the COVID era.
Interesting.
Because I was losing a lot of work and getting canceled here and there for my beliefs during COVID, and so I found myself with a lot of time on my hands. So I always wanted to start a little. So I called it an art project, just showing the places and scenes of the ultimate evil. I mean, well, we'll get into that.
Yeah, no, the ultimate evil. That I like that. That's believe me, when this spree went on, David Berkowitz, and New Yorkers are tough people. He had the whole New York metropolitan area scared. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, without a doubt, and he loved every minute of it, Tom. The ultimate narcissist, David Berkowitz. He enjoyed very much toying with the city of New York and, by extension, the world.
Yeah, the psyche, no doubt.
Exactly.
So walk us through, when the crime started with David Berkowitz, how old he was, what he was doing, and then give us a little background on the crimes.
Well, essentially, the official Son of Sam spree started in July of 1976. David Berkowitz was a 24-year-old cab driver at the time. He was actually going through a bunch of odd jobs, security guard, cab driver. Finally, he landed on postal sorter at the U.S. Postal Service in the Bronx.
Right.
But when he started this spree, and I say officially because we've actually have added a new victim to his list. That precludes the official start. But Donna Lauria on July 29th, 1976 was his first kill, and then the spree went on for basically an entire year. He would take off a month and a half between shootings, and eventually he was arrested on August 10th, 1977, after having shot, again, officially killed 6 people and wounded 7.
And tell the audience what his MO was, how he picked his targets or how he approached them. Like he went out kind of like a predator, correct?
Correct. And people don't realize that he considered it his job. He was out almost every night stalking the streets of New York City, looking for a suitable victim. And essentially it was all victims of circumstance, of convenience. There are probably 100, 200 people walking around today who might have been a victim of David Berkowitz had the circumstances been a little bit better for him.
Right.
But essentially he ended up finding people. They say he's a Lover's Lane killer, but that really wasn't the case. He shot on city streets. He shot people in lovers' lanes. He shot people on the front stoops of their houses. So it's really kind of a misnomer to call him a Lover's Lane killer.
Okay.
He was a serial killer using sniping as his MO, attacking strangers unexpectedly in the night, which is actually an extremely rare version of crime.
Okay, so that's not a standard when they're doing the studies on how to figure out what these serial killers are thinking. He was kind of an outlier, you're saying, in a way. But the people I'm looking at all the ages, they all did seem to be young.
Yeah, but you got to wonder, was he walking around with a birth records of New York City when he was shooting people?
Right.
He didn't really know their ages.
Right.
And they did range from about 18 to 26. But his first victim, which we found in 2024, a woman named Wendy Savino, who NYPD did add to his official list of victims, and she was featured in the recent Netflix documentary. She was 38 years old. So he didn't, again, there's kind of myths that go around about the case. That
of
he was
course.
a Lover's Lane killer, that he only shot young women with long brown hair.
Well, I have a question, though. Maybe, in the sense, did he prey on his victims late at night where they just happen to be younger? Because younger people happen to be out late at night. Is that possible?
That's very possible as well. And he was definitely a late at night shooter. But even that isn't always the case, because one of his shootings took place at 7:30 p.m.
Okay,
right on the middle of a busy sidewalk.
Wow,
it wasn't a Lover's Lane. It was just a sidewalk at rush hour, virtually in a neighborhood called Forest Hills in Queens.
So my next question is, I know from I don't know. I was a kid. But believe me, I knew of it. I just started probably, as a young kid, I read the newspapers. That's why I'm interested in politics and history and current events. How did the police, give us now the kind of what the detectives in New York City, what was the strategy, how they capture them and how they bring them in? And then we're going to go to break, and then we're going to get into the new information about when this guy might have started doing his dastardly deeds. But give us a little background on the police work.
Sure. Well, the police work was as best as it could have been given the time period. They didn't have surveillance cameras. They didn't have DNA. And they really didn't have very many witnesses either, because, again, Berkowitz chose his victims very carefully. So it actually took them several shootings before they even connected the dots that there was a single serial shooter going around New York City. But essentially, they created a 300-man task force that took in mountains and mountains of paperwork,
right,
and got hundreds, thousands of witnesses and leads that they followed. You wouldn't believe where they went. They went to Las Vegas. They went to California. They went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, running down leads. And they couldn't find a single solitary person. What people don't understand is that Berkowitz has 118 IQ. He's extremely smart, extremely manipulative. He knew police tactics because he had been an auxiliary policeman in 1968 to 1970 in the Bronx. And he had scanners that he listened to. So he knew what was going on. He was very well versed. He knew how to evade capture. Eventually, he ended up, I believe, capturing himself. He was sick and tired of everything, and he got a parking ticket at the site of his last shooting. And he went around and did the shooting anyway, which you would think that a smart person like David Berkowitz wouldn't have done, knowing that the police would investigate. But he has said subsequently that he wanted it all to end. He was tired of it. And so I believe he purposely got that ticket, and then they ran it down about 10 days later, and they found this nondescript postal worker in Yonkers, New York. And they came up, they looked at his car, they saw all sorts of arsenals of weapons. They went into his car, they found a letter that was very similar to his other letters, and they knew they had their man. And he gave up himself very quickly without a fight, smiling the entire way, and he was extremely cooperative, confessed to the entire spree that evening, pled guilty, and now is serving 6 life sentences.
He said it sounded like he was exhausted from the rush, like and the adrenaline rush, and like getting off on it. And it of course that has to. I would think that would be part of it. Correct?
Well, he says that he actually didn't enjoy it, but I tend to agree with you. I think that he got off on it in some capacity. I don't think it was a sexual thrill like a lot of serial killers.
Yeah.
But it was definitely some feeling of power, manipulation. Berkowitz is the ultimate narcissist. Even to this day, he still writes on his blog, on his website, and it's all about me,
right.
Poor me. Yeah, and he writes about me, in fact, quite a lot, saying about how I'm victimizing him and how I'm one of his biggest haters, and all I do is spread.
Oh, wow. Wow, so you're under his skin, which, you know what? Hopefully you're torturing him in some way. That's very interesting, Manny, that he's actually so full of himself that he's going after a crime researcher who, does stuff online. So here's another component that I'm sure of the case, that he was like a devil worshiper, or he was hallucinating that the neighbor's dogs were talking to him. That was part of the story. Is that true, or was that all nonsense?
Well, it's half true. The devil worshiping comes from an author named Maury Terry. And actually, I originally got into the Son of Sam story because I believed in Maury Terry's thesis that David Berkowitz was a devil worshiper who had accomplices. I have since subsequently proved that Maury Terry lied about that entire thing. His book, The Ultimate Evil, is a work of fiction, and that Berkowitz did not, in fact, worship the devil or was part of any group. It was just him wigging out alone. But he was wigging out alone because he was extremely bothered by noises. So even though he lived in this beautiful top floor apartment with a Hudson River view way above in the hills of Yonkers with the beautiful views, he still couldn't find peace because his neighbor's dog was barking all the time, and it drove him mad.
Drove him crazy.
That's another part of the story that's too long to get into that not too many people know, but he also terrorized, while he was doing Son of Sam, he also terrorized his neighbors with Molotov cocktails, shooting and killing their dogs, sending them threatening letters, calling SWAT teams on them. It's kind of a deep story. Yeah.
So let's do this, Manny. Now we're gonna get into the part 2 after the break with Manny Grossman, and part 2 for the listeners is this serial killing spree might have started 6 years earlier, and this is based on Manny's research. And from what you hear now, he knows David Berkowitz better than, I think, better than anyone. Berkowitz is actually talking about him in prison today. So we'll be back after the break with Manny Grossman.
Be sure to follow Talk Radio 1210 WPHT on the free Odyssey app. Download it now.
Welcome back to 1210 WPHT in Philadelphia. This is Tom Azelby. I'm speaking with Manny Grossman, a crime researcher. We're talking about the Son of Sam in 1976. And Manny, we're going to go back to 1970. But before we do, I have to ask you a question because I want to know who I was actually, what victim I was talking about. And I was walking at the Jupiter Inlet down in Florida. And, it's a beautiful spot to just walk out, see the water coming breaking on the rocks or whatever. And I start talking to a guy from New York City, and I ask him, how long have you been down here? And he goes, since 1980. So we start having a nice conversation. I'm like, wow, 1980, that's before everyone started migrating to Florida in droves. And I said, why'd you leave New York to come here? Because Jupiter at that time was still kind of a sleepy Florida beach town. And he said, I had enough of New York in the 1970s. And he starts talking about the blackout, the crime. The place was, it was literally Gotham. And I said, oh, yeah, it was the son of Sam. And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, he shot one of my friends. And so I'm asking you, I think it was two women that were together that was shot. And I actually believe he said she moved down to Florida, too, near him. And they're still friends to this day. But I guess I'm telling you that personal story. And for the listeners is like that's the son of Sam is in people's psyche, like myself as a kid, because he was going to come to Bergen County. Who do you think that victim was?
If it's two women who were shot together, it's most likely Donna DeMasi or Joanne Lomino. Most likely Donna DeMasi because she's still alive.
Okay.
Joanne Lomino was paralyzed. He shot them both on their stoop when they were just sitting there talking. Again, not a lover's lane,
right?
Not a lover's lane type shooting. And it was the third incident, took place on November 26, 1976. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. How big was his footprint? Like, how many boroughs did he go into?
He hit the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn.
That's a pretty big footprint.
Yes, exactly. And he knew those streets like the back of his hand, Tom. He was out every night scouting, hunting, predating. It was like he considered this his job. He kept his car in tip-top shape, always had parts to replace in his car, oil filters, and so on and so forth, and kept it running like a top. And so, yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because when I started this video series, I kind of had caught that same wave where everybody who I met had a personal story. And you're right, the crimes are still well within the psyche because it took place primarily affected teenagers and early 20s in the 1970s. All those people are still alive as an age cohort.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are still very traumatized to this day, especially if it was one of their friends that were killed.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And back then we didn't have as many distractions. So a case like this, it would be your total focus if it was in the news. Now we have there's so many distractions. Like I don't think my college kids or high school kids would have it. Like they wouldn't have this hyper focus but back then there wasn't a lot of different things going on that you could distract you from hearing about this horrendous murder. But let's do this. Let's get to 1970. Let's go 6. So this is the prequel. And tell me a little bit about your partner, Detective Lorenzo, and how you guys have worked together. He's a retired Yonkers detective. And from what I understand is his dad did a little bit of work on the Son of Sam case when he was a detective. So I'll let you take us back to 1970.
Yes, correct. And I work with, amongst several cops that I have worked with in the past, Mike Lorenzo definitely stands out as the person who I've gotten the closest with. I met him just by cold calling him. I actually thought I was calling his father because they both have the same name.
Yeah.
And his father worked the Son of Sam Yonkers neighborhood crimes in 1977. In fact, his father was the first law enforcement official to ever write down the name David Berkowitz on a piece of paper, and that was in June of 1977. Long story there we won't go into, but Mike and I started working together about 3 years ago. We quickly became very close friends and also very, very good working partners. And about 2 years ago, we started thinking outside the box on Son of Sam a little bit.
Okay.
We realized that he had some certain psychological tells when he was writing to his psychiatrist. He would write things that implied that he had other victims. So we went into research mode, and eventually we found a woman named Wendy Savino, who had been shot Son of Sam style in 1976, 3 months before the first official shooting spree. Long story short, we called her. She said that she had been shot by David Berkowitz. And not only that, that she had been telling people this from the day he was arrested because she recognized his face, and that she, in fact, did go to law enforcement. She went to the Bronx district attorney in 1977, who did nothing with her case. People can learn about that on my YouTube channel, The Grossman Files. But in 1970, and Mike Lorenzo found this case and brought it to my attention. This was a huge case when it took place. It was called the Bronx Sniper. It was such a big case, even the New York Times wrote multiple long pieces about it, about how it was ripping the neighborhood apart, how it was a specter at night going and shooting people randomly. In fact, it was a very, very Son of Sam-esque reporting in 1970. And we called this incident a Son of Sam before Son of Sam. So then essentially what took place is on 169th Street, between Grant and Morris Avenues in the Morrisania section of the Bronx, an unknown sniper was going up to what we think rooftops, and between August 22nd, 1970 and October 19th of 1970 shot 6 people, mainly females, and one of the women was killed, 16-year-old Margaret Inglesia. It was the last person shot and the only homicide from the case. Police at that time, if you read the reporting, said, we think that this is a teenager doing this. So we looked at this neighborhood and we realized, wow, Berkowitz worked only 9 blocks away at his father's hardware store, which was in that same neighborhood. He's on record documented as being in that neighborhood that summer. He started work in June of 1970. And in August of 1970, these shootings start. He goes to the Army in 1971. The shootings completely stop. They never happened before he comes to the neighborhood. It never happens after he comes to the neighborhood. Even more intimately to that neighborhood, his synagogue, where he had gone to Hebrew school and been bar mitzvahed, was a mere 2 blocks away from the epicenter of the shooting site. His synagogue was on 169th and the Grand Concourse. So he was intimately familiar with this neighborhood. We believe that he already had tendencies, the anger, the motivation to be a killer. We know that he became a killer. The MO is very much like Son of Sam, stranger shootings, taking place under the cover of darkness, sniping, mainly female victims, and perpetrator gets away and is a stranger to the neighborhood.
Let me ask you, Manny, were all the people, these shootings in 1970, how old is Berkowitz, and does he wound every person he shoots at this time, if it's him, allegedly?
He's 17 years old, and yes, it is good to say allegedly, because all we're saying with this case is that there's interesting smoke here that cannot rule Berkowitz out. We're not naming him as the victim, as the perpetrator, but we feel that this case should be reopened with an eye towards interrogating David Berkowitz, because he was in that neighborhood. He had the means, the motive. There were 6 victims, and they were all, in fact, shot. The bullets did hit every one of them, but only one was killed. And in a cruel way, too. The Margaret Inglesia was shot, fell on the ground, was writhing on the floor, and then the sniper shot 2 more times into her body, killing her.
Was he standing over, or was he from a distance?
Well, we don't know. That's one of the things. We want these files to be reopened. We want to know why the police thought it was a teenager at the time, which was reported. He would have been 17 years old. Yeah. And if people think that teenagers can't kill or wouldn't kill, well, I got 100 years of case studies showing you plenty of teenagers who kill people.
Of course. Last question, because we got to go to break. What is the response from the New York City Police Department on your investigation? What are they telling you? Are they cooperative? What happens now after all these years? How do the police respond to it?
Well, we are after the New York Post article came out, we did get quite a lot of attention from retired police.
Right.
So right now we haven't gone to the police directly. Our strategy on this was to get it in the press first. Luckily, the press was very receptive to this story. They found it newsworthy, and we're hoping to get some crack young detective who wants to look at a historic cold case, we're looking to get somebody interested like that. So right now we don't have any official response from the New York Police Department, but we're hoping that changes very soon. And there are definitely things happening behind the scenes that we might get some answers at some point in the very near future.
Manny Grossman, let me tell you, this is intriguing, so interesting. What great work. And I want to tell my listeners, the Grossman Files on YouTube. You can tell from this interview, Manny's all over this. If you're into true crime, he's the guy to listen to. Manny, great interview. Thanks for coming on and sharing this fascinating story, a tragic but fascinating story. Thank you, Manny.